Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Jennifer Caniglio with CCBJ, and we're thrilled to be working with our partner Reveal to present today's webcast, the GAI Paradox, torn between fear and desire. Our distinguished speakers are Kristen Sunderman, eDiscovery and ESI Management Director for Freddie Mac, Cassie Burns, Senior Attorney at King Spalding, Alicia Hawley of Counsel for K&L Gates, Jamie Raba, Partner at Safe Arts Shaw, and Kat Casey, Chief Growth Officer for Reveal. We encourage you to ask questions, as well as fill out the survey with your feedback at the end. And if you're interested in this presentation or additional materials, you may download it using the blue paper cup icon, and all icons are available at the bottom of your screen. And now it's my pleasure to pass it off to Kat. Kat?
I will thank you, everyone, all 500 of our closest friends, for joining us on what is going to be an epic head-to-head debate on the GAI Paradox, torn between fear and desire. As our wonderful CCBJ announcer said, I've got a great group of people here, but let's give them a second to introduce themselves a little bit more than title. So for those that don't know, I'm Kat Casey. I'm an influencer on AI, Chief Growth Officer of Reveal, and just a big advocate of people embracing technology. Next on the screen, I've got Alicia Hawley. You want to do a little intro?
Oh, sure. An influencer I am not, but I do consider myself someone who talks about these issues quite a bit. I am of Counsel at K&L Gates, and I've been in the e-discovery space for a really long time, and I love talking about legal tech and AI and where we're going with these things.
All right, Jamie, you're up.
Hello, I'm Jamie Raba. I am a partner at Safe Arts Shaw. And my practice is basically data law writ large. AI has been sort of long at the center of my practice, but suddenly everyone's interested in it. And I've been involved in this space basically since the beginning of my practice in the early, let's say mid-2000s. And I think Alicia is an influencer.
All right, Kristen, you are up, my dear.
I second that. I was actually going to say, Alicia, you influence me a lot. So I think maybe.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you guys saw the quote that I was just quoted yesterday in the news for saying, oof. So if that's not influencing, then I don't know what is.
I'll take it. I'll take it. So I'm Kristen Sunderman. I run the eDiscovery group at Freddie Mac. We utilize many AI processes in our world now, and I am very excited about it and involved heavily in the adoption and use case evaluation of it. So I'm definitely here for this discussion, excited to talk about it.
Awesome. And last but not least, someone who definitely is a little bit of an influencer, I've got Cassie Burns.
Thank you so much, Kat, and for inviting me to this panel. I know I'm playing the role of someone who was on the previous version of it. I am Cassie Burns, based in Fort Worth, Texas, with King Spalding. And similar to everyone else here, I've been involved in eDiscovery and the use of AI in litigation for quite a while. And I'm really excited that AI and machine learning is getting a bit of a glow up with worldwide attention to it. And my practice is primarily eDiscovery, but I'm starting to dip my toes into the new world of AI governance. So me in a nutshell.
The world just caught up with us. We've been all in on AI for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So this session, more than most, I want to reiterate that these are the views that our wonderful cast is espousing, not that of their employer. It may not even be their own personal view. It is for our debating pleasure. So as always, this is for education and not to be taken as legal advice. So digging in, we're going to do a little bit of baseline setting, about 20 minutes, set the stage, ask a couple questions of the group, and then we're going to do literal a face-off. We're going to have 90 seconds each side, all in on AI, proceed with caution, battle it out. We're going to have you guys vote at the very outset to see where you guys stand. And then at the end, we're going to see if we've changed your opinion in any way, shape, or form. It can go either way, but I'm hoping for the needle to move a little bit. So, I think let's kick it off with the simple thing, the elephant in the room. We are in the middle of an AI renaissance. Ever since ChatGPT was released about 18 months ago, we are not even exponential growth. We are double exponential growth of AI adoption, hype, embracing. Every panel seems to be about it, and it's at our fingertips. There's a South Park episode featuring, written by, and starring ChatGPT. It's gone mainstream. So before we even get started, for the group here that's tuning in, go ahead and vote and let me know if you even know what GAI is. Go ahead. Let's A, B, or C. I'm curious. I'll give you guys like 15 seconds. But for the audience, have you guys seen a shift in people that were like, "What the heck is this?" to, "Oh, I actually know what this stuff is, and I'm using it." Alicia,
On that, if you don't mind. So I've seen a shift. I think we often live in a little bubble, a social media bubble, and I think for a while it seemed like everybody knew what ChatGPT was, and of course, our bubbles are served up to us via an algorithm, so maybe we shouldn't be surprised. But talking to my friends who are not in legal tech or eDiscovery, they're like, "What are you even talking about?" And my best friend is a kindergarten teacher, and she's just now saying, "You know what? We're hearing about it and talking about how to use it." And we have a nice, fun conversation on how to play around with it. So starting to, I think, have more people aware of it compared to a year ago.
I mean, I think if you look, 75% are saying yes. Only 2% have no idea. That is a fundamental shift. We've been talking about AI for years now. The bigger question, though, is are people actually using it? Our teacher friend said folks were starting to talk about it, but are you guys seeing your peers using the technology?
I think that on the first question you were asking too, I think there's a big difference between knowing what it is or having heard about it and actually understanding what it is. Because I think I think a lot of people have heard of generative AI and or think it's ChatGPT and that's it. And they don't really have an understanding of what it actually does, how it actually works, and the sort of the capacities it can be used in, because it's become so mainstream that it's like water cooler talk now. And I was visiting my dad in Arizona over Christmas, and I was at this dinner party with a bunch of people over the age of 75, and they were talking about ChatGPT and AI. And I was like, "Oh yeah, tell me about it. Like, what do you think it is?" And turns out nobody has any idea what it is, actually. They just have heard about ChatGPT, right? So I think there's a difference between hearing about it and actually understanding it.
And then even using it. And like that's even smaller.
Well, I think there's someone commented that the OpenAI ChatGPT's website's been visited 1.6 billion times in the last month, and that's 170% increase since February 23. So just in this short period of time, it's spiking way up. And I think that kind of goes to the awareness, but not necessarily knowing how to use it component. And we kind of see that with the results of the poll. So let's dig into this a little bit. There were a couple questions we wanted to set the stage with. What does GAI mean to you? Like, people are saying the word, they're saying ChatGPT, they might be confusing them, but what does it mean to you? And why do you think we've kind of skipped over that, trough of disillusionment right into slope of enlightenment? The hype curve sort of seems to be turned on its head. I've got Cassie up in the big screen, so if you want to chime in.
I honestly think we haven't hit the trough of disillusionment yet. I may be wrong here, but I think there's not enough people using it and integrating it. And I think there's always pain points and the overhype. This made my life so easy, but I think we all know using these tools, you have to work at it a little on the front end to get the benefit on the back end. And I think, there maybe that disillusionment hasn't hit yet. I think it's ubiquitous, it's easily available, it's the natural language processing just makes it more approachable. And I think people are trying to do a lot in increasingly less time in any way they can make their lives a little bit easier. They're looking for that.
I think that's a really good point. It's the approachability of it. You don't need to be a linguist or know lambda calculus or statistical sampling. You can access it, at Doug Kaminsky was mentioning, and right in Microsoft and Copilot, you can access it at the fingertips of an app. What about for you, for Cassie, and for Jamie and Kristen? What does it mean to you? What is GAI, and how is it different from all the other AI we've been talking about?
I can jump in. I think for me, we've always had this dilemma of how do we explain what we do at dinner parties? How do we talk about, this space, because it's so niche and it's complicated at times. So when I'm, talking to people about it that are, just playing with it, right? My 14-year-old will go in and create an amazing poem about what an awesome, legal tech professional I am, and it warms my heart. But that doesn't really impact our life, right? That's fun, it's exciting, it's exposure. But what does it really mean? And so the way that I explain it is it's AI that can generate content, right? Traditional AI was able to analyze data and tell you what it sees, but generative AI can actually create content for you. It can start you at a different baseline than where you were before. So it takes out some of the, for lack of a better term, the grunt work for you. It doesn't complete it for you, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit later with the debate, but at least it gives you a baseline to start from, which is, it revolutionizes how we work, and it can revolutionize how we work. And I do think that the playing of it, and I love seeing my kids involved in it. I love hearing about kindergartner teachers using it, right? Because it is bringing about the awareness that this is a tool. And I hope it helps to alleviate the fear. I'm giving a little preview as to what side I might be on, but it helps to so that we can embrace it and use it in really meaningful ways. Because I think the potential here is exponential. And I agree with Cassie. I don't think we've quite hit that point yet, right? I think we're trying to get there, but it's really just starting. We're starting to get it, and people are starting to learn about it. But the education piece is really important.
It's an interesting point you brought up, because it is fundamentally different from, replicating human cognition to replicating human creation. So it's making stuff that didn't exist before, from images to content to, it can do search functionality, but it's a different way of cutting through noise to get to signal. Got another slide I wanted to show. Like, this just shows some of the adoption curve. It's a fundamentally different adoption curve than we've seen on almost any other tech. It's almost like double exponential. In the amount of time that it took to get 100 million users of ChatGPT, I think it took 3.5 years for Netflix and for Instagram. So this is very, very rapid adoption. It's not the multi-years that it took even with the internet. Knowing this, knowing everyone's talking about it, they don't really know what it is. Each of you are involved with GAI, AI committees, in vetting and leveraging AI within your organizations. How are you balancing this, massive opportunity, massive awareness, lack of knowledge, potential risk in your respective roles?
Yeah. I mean, I can take the lead on this. I think there's a lot of things to consider, so I'll just point a couple of those out, and then so that the rest of the panel can jump in as well. But I think, when you're sort of initially evaluating tools, and there's a few things you have to look at initially before you even get into these deep dives of like security concerns and everything. I think, you need to think about what problem you're trying to solve with the tool, and then how does it purport to do the thing that you need it to do, right? So it's very baseline, like, what problem are you trying to solve? Now what tools can actually solve it? And now let's dive in and see, do the tools do what they say they're going to do? Because everybody's trying to be first to market, or, first to market on a particular type of issue, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it can actually do what it says it's going to do. So you have to really get into these tools and try them out. Going beyond just a demo is really important, because the demo is going to be the greatest thing ever, right? Like, that's what it's designed to do, is to make you think that it's going to do all the things. So I think, just talking about things initially, that you really have to ask the hard questions of, how are you going to solve the problem I need solved, and show me that it will actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let the rest of the people chime in on some other things.
And that the cost will justify, the efficiencies gained. So.
Well, and
yeah, I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that having that conversation of what you want to do and understanding the capability and limits of the tech itself, that's step one. Kristen?
Yeah, I think it has to be a two-pronged approach. I think it's not just looking at the technology. You also have to look at the people, especially when you're looking at corporations and firms that have been around for a very long time, doing business for a certain way for, as long as they can remember, because you are asking people to change how they work, to look for ways to change how they work. And that can be uncomfortable. Change can be very uncomfortable. So I think it's also looking for people who can identify these areas, who can be champions of change, who can rally support, who can, garner that kind of campaign that you're going to need, combined with then vetting and finding the right software and not being wowed by the demos and, putting all the costs into place. But I think it has to be twofold, because you can have the best technology in-house, you can have all of these great systems, but if you don't get the adoption from the people using them, then it's futile and it's not going to go anywhere. So that's kind of where I think, at least, from what my perspective would be, is to really start with identifying people that are going to go out and find these areas that are going to look for ways to be creative, that are going to be open to change, that are going to do it, and then find the technology, and then do all of that vetting, because that's a whole process in and of itself, right?
Well, it's sort of the, how do you go from innovation to transformation? It's people, not in a Soylent Green sort of way. How about for you? Got a little sci-fi reference. But would you agree with that too? Like, do you sort of see it as kind of a, pros and cons, understand the tech, get into the hood, try it out in kind of incremental ways, and then kind of get a tiger team that can endorse it and kind of be the evangelist internally?
I mean, I do. One of the interesting things about generative AI is it's sort of the iPhone of AI technology, because for the first time, people can interact directly with an AI technology in an interactive, sort of iterative way. And we are used to interacting with AI models in, like, in the dungeons of crazy servers and having it run in various iterations and training sets and all of these things. And finally, it's no longer beholden to this really interface that you have to be an expert to use. And so I think it's easier to balance the fear and desire because it's easier to do test cases. And a lot of these people that we see on the news who figure like this is their new best friend and they can do all their work for them, did not test anything. No. But I mean, balance and fear and desire and testing and sort of like immediately testing, like that feedback loop is sort of like the bread and butter of what gave us this amazing adaptive technology. But on the other hand, it's a little bit Greek, because we understand definitely how it's trained, sort of like fancy autocomplete. You've heard fancy autocomplete to describe generative AI, but really it's not that, I don't think. I mean, after really, really thinking about it and studying it and getting into the nuts and bolts of the models, I agree with a lot of people who say we don't understand how it works. And we really don't. Because I mean, it's sort of like we understand it the way the Greeks understood smoke. Smoke rises because it is smoke's property to rise. And so, it's like we observe how it works, but we know how the model's put together and how it's trained, but it's such a complex deep learning model. And it's not like the neural networks where you can just kind of look at input and output, because it's distributed and there's so many factors that are going on in the decision-making process. You can't sort of reverse engineer how it got from point A to point B. So it's sort of like asking how humans come to, like, why did you, when you saw this Rorschach test, how did you come to that conclusion? And so that's kind of where we're at. But isn't it amazing?
I just want to say that I think I know how the outputs are created, and I think it's ancient aliens. So I may be wrong, but I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't think your hair is big enough to say that, though. It has to be much larger to be the ancient alien guy.
But I think Jamie hit the nail on the head, and I think it'll come out in one of the questions, in that we have to continue to vet and use our analytic skills to validate. We can't just say, oh, it's doing it, let's accept it, right? We have to still uphold our ethics and our rules and all of the things that we have to follow to make sure that it is defensible and accurate. And, as Jamie said at the beginning, not everyone is doing that. So we have to have that. We have to use it responsibly. And that's really the piece, I think.
Yeah. I think we'll get into the meat and potatoes of that soon.
Yeah. So I think that, going back to the original question, because I think we're going to cover a lot of this coming up here in some other questions, but going back to the original question of how are we evaluating generative AI tools, I want to just point out that something really important and I think obvious is that there are a lot of technical questions that have to be asked to be considering the security and the privacy of the data and the tool and everything that's going into it, right? So like when you're evaluating those tools, you have to be looking at, is it public in any way? Is it a completely closed universe of data? Is the data that you're putting in being used to train the model that other people will then be benefiting from? Like, there's a lot of questions that then have to go into, you know, that sort of piece of things beyond just its basic functionality, and is it answering the questions that you need it to answer, and is it solving the problems you need to solve? So before we move to the next topic, I just want to really flag that, because that is a critical piece of this, especially given the type of data that we are putting into these tools, you know, as legal professionals.
I mean, I think everyone who's gotten in trouble has been derelict in their duty of technical competence, in supervision, in, I don't know, checking your work. Who would send a first-year associate's draft without going into Lexis and seeing if the links are real? I mean, it's not bad tech, it's bad lawyering, but you need to know where those risks are to identify them. But with the bad, there is some good. What are you most excited or worried about in terms of use cases for this technology? I mean, I think, Alicia, you're hitting some of the nails on the head in terms of what's going to happen to my data and is it safe, but...
That was me hitting nails on the head.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, well, I'll start real quick on this. Is as far as like what I'm most excited, I'll give a quick answer to both. What I'm most excited about, I mean, what we know already that generative AI does really well is that it digests and summarizes large amounts of data. That is like tried and true, tested out. Gen AI can do that particular set of tasks. We know that it does that. And so we know that it can do it really well depending on the tool. So I'm excited about that because I think it is a very right now use case where we can feel comfortable using it, right? That's not like too forward thinking. The thing that I'm most worried about is what we've already touched on, which is bad actors and bad users and uninformed and untrained users. Because those are the people, and we can talk more about that. We'll talk more about this more. Those are the people that kind of like mess it up for everybody else, right? That make it, that have the case that gets worldwide attention from the Southern District of New York and makes it, people think that it's the tool that's bad when it's not the tool that's bad. It's the people using it weren't trained properly and didn't really know what it was supposed to be used for, right? So that's what I get worried about most.
Well, it's like getting mad at a hammer because you put your thumb on top of the nail before you hit the nail on the head. It's not a bad hammer, it's a bad user. What about the rest of the group? We've got about 2 or 3 more minutes before we're going to switch to the debate. So rapid fire.
I'll jump in fast. I think the thing I'm most excited about, particularly in the context of eDiscovery, is audiovisual content, audiovisual video, because we historically don't know how to handle that in eDiscovery very well. And if the answer to redacting an audio file is transcribing it and redacting I just feel like there are a lot of ways that we can get value from generative AI on summaries from those data sources. What I'm worried about, adding on to Alicia's comment, the bad actors and the generative AI, potentially deepfakes, in particular in family cases, domestic dispute, having those access to justice, issues.
Well, it's very inexpensive to download an app and deepfake, your wife looking like she's doing something impropriety or whatever the case may be. So, oh goodness, Jamie, what about you?
We're not. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. My bad.
I was saying they're not going to be in a position necessarily to hire an expert, to prove that it's deepfaked.
Yeah, and as far as like AI's superpowers, we have to remember that generative AI isn't just ChatGPT. It is, it is graphical. It is also acoustic, where you can train people's voices and get a song sung in someone else's voice, and it's really convincing. So you can get a politician or a significant other to allegedly say things they didn't really say to that point. And, the early models of GPT, for example, were mostly good at summarizing typical content, things that were closely related to the data it was trained on. So, things that were common on the internet. But what we've seen with a lot of these really complex, next gen AI models is they have all these emergent properties. Somehow they learn how to play chess. Somehow they learn how to program. Somehow they learn how to do all these things. So, it's a little head scratcher as to how they do that. But they have gotten very good at summarizing content they weren't necessarily trained on. But one of my worries is each iteration, each generation, each monthly tweak or weekly tweak that we see released in these systems, the system works a little bit differently from time to time. And so what seems to be the tried and true system of, input, output, very good, sometimes things get a little bit different from version to version. And so one thing I think we need to come to terms with is we are currently part of a supermassive beta test. Results may vary.
Oh, I love that. Well, I think if we're okay, that seems like the perfect segue to the head-to-head battle, the face-off. Rules of the road. We are going to give each team 90 seconds for point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. I've got Cassie and Alicia. They are on the side of proceed with caution. So embrace AI, but maybe be a little cautious. And then Kristen and Jamie all in on AI every day. But before we kick it off, I want to do a poll of the audience of where you stand on the spectrum. And we're going to close up the debate with the same poll. And I want to see if we have moved the needle at all. So vote away. I'll give you another second or two. Is my debate team, the cohort of brilliant legal luminaries, ready to go?
You know it.
Yeah.
Right.
I took my gloves off and my dukes are up and I'm totally ready.
Ready to go.
I love it. I'll give it another second. Let's see if we've got some votes coming in. All right, so majority is proceed with caution. We've got a couple undecideds. For those that are here, I've got a stopwatch and I have a bell. And if you go over, I'm gonna ring the bell. So let's get started. So generative AI can be an efficiency force multiplier or a hallucinating headache. Can we rely on Gen AI for critical decisions if there's a potential compromise in accuracy for efficiency? I'm going to kick it off to Alicia because she's the big square. You have 90 seconds to tell me why you want to proceed with caution.
Did you say I'm the biggest square?
You're the big square. All right, go.
I'm a square. Yeah, so the short answer to this is no, we cannot compromise accuracy because we are lawyers and legal professionals and we have to be accurate. That is what we are paid to do. That is what we are hired to do, is to provide accurate advice and counsel. So the very short answer is no. If using generative AI causes us to be wrong, then that's a no. Now, of course, there are ways to proceed with caution to make sure that we are balancing use of AI with accuracy. And that involves, the things we've been talking about, validating and training and all of that. I look at generative AI as a summer intern. If a summer intern gives me their work product, I do not immediately go turn that in to wherever it's supposed to go, right? I immediately take that work, I site check, I validate, based on my own knowledge and the nuances of what I know as a practicing attorney, I evaluate that work, and then I will use it for whatever purposes it gets used for. And we have to do the exact same thing with generative AI because it is important that we are accurate, and the models they're not designed to give you perfect work product, right? This is an augment your work, not replace.
Cut.
I had to finish my one sentence. Those are the rules.
For counterpoint, who wants to go? Jamie, Kristen?
I'll jump in. So I don't think embracing or being all in on AI means blindly using it without using any of our skills or training that we've had for our entire careers, right? We all have to validate everything that we put forward, anything we put our name on, anything we use. So I don't think the hallucinations, which are getting better, right? Like it's a process and it is improving. So I don't think that should inhibit you from using it. I think we have to be intelligent in how we use it. We have to be defensible in how we use it. And we have to make sure that it's accurate 100%. But we should definitely be using these tools to augment our work and to help us be more efficient so that we free free up more time for higher level thinking, or higher level tasks that right now, we maybe can't focus on as much because of this baseline. So I think you're remiss if you don't utilize these tools to get you started, to get you out of the gate, right? There's a lot of spaces. We talked about summarizing data. There's other areas, right, where algorithm-based trading, things like that are happening as a matter of course, generating drafts, all of those things that can help augment your work and can have you fully embracing AI, as long as you do it in a logical way. You can't just expect that, oh, well, it created it, so we're just going to go ahead and use it as is. That's where the line gets crossed, right? It is learning the new skills of how to prompt things and how to generate the content that you want, but then also the validation on the back end. And I think for those of us in this, the legal world, we are very concerned about that validation and the laws and the rules and the regulations around it, as we should be. So I actually think we're perfectly positioned.
I love it. Well, in the audience, you do have one person saying, yes, common sense rules. So I think Tom Morrissey might be swayed. So it does sound like the all in is all in, but not throwing out our legal obligations with the baby with the bathwater, right?
Yeah, I heard Kristen basically agreeing with me. So I feel like that.
Yeah, I feel like you were making my case, Alicia. I agree. I think we're right on the same side of the coin. It's just, I think, how they approach, whether it's fear-based or, I look at it as we're building new methods to, have highly efficient human AI collaboration is a fancy way of saying be careful.
All right, well, fine. I got to give it over to the opposing side now, even though the opposition is not that fierce. It seems like different. So next up would be Cassie. You're going to bring
Yeah, we're going to be a little fierce here. I'm going to bring the burn into the situation. So I would argue that would it really be remiss to use a tool that arguably creates a large opportunity for attorneys to be committing malpractice? Now, let's be honest here. The practice of law can't be distilled to just, is it accurate or not accurate? What we do in our profession is much more robust than that. There are areas of persuasion. There's novel and creative ways we can approach things that an algorithm is never going to be able to do. I'm never going to be, I firmly believe that my skill set, my knowledge, my legal prowess is not going to be able to be commoditized by an algorithm, because what we do is more than just analyze facts. We look at the story, we figure out the points of persuasion, and we figure out how we can best leverage the law and existing case law to meet the needs of our client, in a way that's defensible. So, and that's something that I firmly believe an algorithm is never going to be able to capture in any way. So I think we're better spent focusing on maintaining our own ideals and our own practices as we've been doing it for a very long time, because I just feel that our practice is more sophisticated than that.
All right. Well, that seems like a nuanced but slight burn right there. To bring up the end, I've got Jamie to jump on in, kind of bring us all the way home. Why are you all in versus proceed with caution?
AI is too dangerous. AI is too risky. Confidentiality, privilege. Yeah, there are jurisdictions where you are supposed to protect your client's confidences at one's own peril. You're supposed to go to jail for your client's secrets, or rather than betray your client's secrets. I believe in that. But I still think that we should adopt AI as widespread as possible. Cars are very, very dangerous, and we drive them. But there's driver's training, and there's insurance, and you have to use care. And so with AI, without AI, we might as well be walking. The benefits of AI, the ability to be more efficient, to serve your clients better, and to serve an underserved population, I think is just opening its door for us. I think the ability to do more with less, and the ability to sort of use technology to free us to do the more mission critical things instead of make work. I think we're going to go from wasting resources to truly marshaling them and using our legal training and resources more appropriately. And this will be the future. But of course, we do need to balance the risks. We need to know about them, but it is not too dangerous. And we are ready to adopt AI in a widespread manner with, of course, the proper training and, of course, making sure that our tools
so obedient. Well,
are
I feel
licensed
like
properly.
couldn't help yourself. Well, I mean, talk about a fierce debate. It feels like there's a little bit of light on day between both sides, but you're not on polar opposites. There was a question in the audience that kind of ties to all this. Should legal tech have better benchmarks around these ideas of accuracy and efficiency to better evaluate the risk versus reward, and to talk about it with clients? I mean, would that help in kind of clarifying this debate, you think? Anyone?
You mean like recall and precision?
Yeah. Right. No, but I think that I have strong thoughts on this. I think that there have to be some sort of general concepts of accuracy and efficiency, but I think that already exists. Like, we have the ability to think critically and use common sense, and so we know what is accurate and what's efficient, right? And I think that you run the risk when you start defining things too much of it like being completely confined. And we're seeing this happening with technology assisted review, right? Where there are factions of people that are trying to like define validation so precisely that it's making every single party in every single case have to be tied to that. And that's not how, that's not how the technology is meant to be run. And there's a lot of case law out there that says that the parties can sort of do it themselves and make the decisions to do it right and to use the tools correctly. So I think it's part of our job to be able to use these tools correctly. We have ethical responsibilities. We have professional responsibilities to do that. I don't think we need to otherwise start defining.
Remember when Gmail came out?
Yeah.
Remember when Gmail came out, and at first everyone's like, oh my God, they're training their ads on this. No attorney can use Gmail. And then slowly but surely, we got all these ethics opinions like, actually, drop in the ocean, it's machines, it's not being transmitted to other people. Okay, you can use Gmail. Well, I'm just saying that was a moment we were in, and at first the sky was going to fall, but then it didn't.
And I would say, I think that we think of accuracy and precision in the context of eDiscovery, but if we think about the broader impact of how we use technology in our legal profession, that's going to be an incredibly hard metric to capture. That's probably not worth capturing, at the end of the day. The time and resources it would take to capture something that's fairly subjective. If you start thinking about how good was this technology at first draft or this summary, how do you quantify that? So.
Well, I think that goes back to the earlier point, Cassie, that you made. There's a fear that AI is going to replace us and our experience and our knowledge. And I think that it's not going to, right? Our experience, education, our ability to have holistic strategies and views on how to apply the technology is going to be essential. It's really using the technology to augment our processes, our workflow, so that we can use our own knowledge and experience and the human factor. And I think it goes back to that, my little, one-liner about the human AI collaboration is going to be essential, because we do need to be the ones that are guiding it, right? We are leveraging it, and we are choosing where and how it fits and when it works. And a lot of that is a case-by-case decision. It's not a one size fits all, right? You can maybe have some bare metrics, but it is looking at the matter, the data, the issue, what you're trying to solve for, and then making those decisions based on that, which is essential to our own experiences and our own education. And that can't be replaced by AI. It's just learning to leverage it in a more meaningful way. So the knowledge and the education piece, again, I think is going to come back to being essential.
I think that goes to one of the comments in the audience on, will the law firms and corporations invest in the training that people need so they can effectively and defensively use the technology? And TBD, I don't know. That is a good segue, though. Like, I think for the next question, few things have as much impact on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as the legal industry. So much direct impact. Do you think we should be using GAI for legal tasks, knowing this? I'm going to start off in the proponent side. The person in the main square is Kristen. So you drew the kicking it off, Straw.
Sure. I mean, I think the answer is absolutely, and frankly, it's happening, right? We talked about the summarizing data. We talked about creating drafts. So yes, I think that we definitely should be and are using them. And it goes, I think, just to that further point. This allows us to take some of the mundane, the lower level tasks out, the things that are time consuming, right? I would love to be able to summarize things so that I just know exactly what I need to focus on, right? So that I can focus my energy there. So yes, absolutely, 100%.
All right, I love it. Well, I didn't even have to ring the bell for you.
I'm short and sweet.
I love it. Well, I mean, sometimes it's a clear answer. So now going to the counterpoint, I'm going to start off with Cassie this time. If you want to tell me why, you still should proceed with caution on legal tasks.
I still stand by my earlier position that it should really not be used in the practice of law in our core work because what we do is so sophisticated. But I will agree with the point that it could be useful in things like operational management, administrative things, approving time entries or business development work, and on the comment earlier or the prior discussion about why I really don't think it's ready yet for legal tasks, that method that we would take to verify accuracy as you get to more pure authored content where you're validating the results or you're looking at how the strategy fits in, the time it takes to validate that may take away from any cost efficiencies you have, especially with the technology being as expensive as it is. There's really the benefit that comes is illusory. Maybe it's not as beneficial as people claim. Maybe AI washing going on out there. Sorry, maybe not, but.
All right, well, no bell needed for you. That was a strong point. And for those in the audience that don't know, AI washing is sort of like pretending that you have generative AI under the hood when really you might just have a bunch of gerbils on a gerbil wheel spinning in the background, who knows. So that brings us back to Jamie. Jamie, why should we go all in on using GAI and AI for legal tasks?
There is not enough of us. If you look at justice problems, the fact that, the outcome for represented parties versus unrepresented parties is vast, right? The advantage those who have legal representation have. And I think generative AI stands at this sort of corner of being able to help more people, both in the context of legal aid, but also just making things legal more accessible to a broader portion of the population, even reaching out to an underserved middle class. So my view is that AI is going to allow a democratization of things for which only the people with the most money had access to, sort of it taking down the gatekeeper function of a select few and making legal services more broadly available and allow attorneys to serve a broader swath of people more efficiently. So being able to provide more for less.
All right, no bell needed. I think that's a good mic drop. All right, now wrapping it up. Alicia, you are the final word on this debate, whether or not to use AI and GAI for legal tasks, and kick it off.
Sure. I have two primary thoughts on this. The first is going to be in rebuttal to what Jamie just said at the end. I think we all want that, what he just described, this utopian world where everybody has access to the same tools that they can leverage. But the reality is that if you're turning these tools loose without the proper training and the proper understanding, the proper access to these tools, what you get is the Mata versus Avianca matter, right? That's what happens when you go all in on AI without proper training, understanding, and supervision. And so I think that's a lovely utopian pipe dream, but I want that to happen, right? Like I want everyone to have access to all these tools and to be able to represent and advocate for themselves without having to hire expensive lawyers. I so want that. But I think, if you don't proceed with caution, what we get is the Mata versus Avianca matter, which kind of spoiled things at first for everybody because it was immediately like, hold your horses, look at the bad thing that can happen, right? And so we have to be really measured in our approach, and we have to check the boxes of risk assessment and risk management and ethical considerations and data privacy and security considerations and training our users and supervising the tools. We have to do that. Otherwise, we end up in the bad place and it all starts to backfire. Ding.
Perfect timing. I didn't even have to ring the bell. Oh, I love it. I mean, it feels like this was a little bit feisty, a little bit more head to head. We've got a couple actually interesting questions from the audience. Combining two of them, one asked if we think that, a smart human leveraging AI will outperform someone that's just going brute force. And I think we'll all agree that that is the case. But the next question is, do we think there's a scenario where the generative AI or large language model will be smart enough to function without a human in the loop? And I think that's a question for the larger audience that I'd be very curious about. Do you think there's a scenario, whether legal context or otherwise, where it's not going to require human input?
Maybe.
Is that a
I think at this point, maybe anything is possible. It's giving Terminator and things like that caused me to pause. It's hard to, I think, for me to conceptualize what that would look like and how that would apply. But I could certainly see some processes that wouldn't require some, human intervention per se. Not to say that you would want to use any of those for decision making, right? We know that there's issues there. We want to be cautious and logical in how we would apply it, but maybe. Short answer is maybe.
I mean, the way that generative AI is currently designed is that you have to interact with it, right? It is designed for human interaction. So for that to change, the tools would have to change. So, right? Because they're not designed right now to run by themselves. They're designed to be iterative.
So basically, we're not forestalling it, but it's not current state.
Right. But it's not, it's near future though. Like if you think about AI agents and things like that, once those things start kicking off, it is a different playing field. And I will say, I don't know how, I think I would have to be very convinced that there would be no human in the loop necessary. Because I know even just something like my Netflix recommendations, every time I'm like, why did you think I wanted to watch that? So.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of goes to another question that popped up. With the advent of Waze and GPS, a lot of us are really terrible at using an atlas. Do we think that increased reliance on AI and GAI is going to atrophy legal skills?
That's my point exactly. Thank you.
Right.
Maybe unnecessary skills. I mean, we think about none of us can handwrite very well anymore. When I tried writing a handwritten note to my nephew, and my hand cramped up. So, but we type. So I don't know. Is it a bad thing? People feel
right.
very
Maybe we won't have to know all these arcane Excel formulas. We can just tell Excel what to do for us. That would be great.
You had me at hello. All right, we've got one more question from the audience before we go into our final round. And this is a question about when do we think Gen AI is going to get fully baked into kind of different doc review technologies? And I mean, it already is starting to be. I think that we're going to just continue to see all different AI and GAI kind of weaving in. But is that what you guys are seeing as well?
Definitely. Yeah, it's happening already. I mean, I think those are some of the easier wins and easier to monitor and manage. So definitely it's continuing to explode and will continue to. I think there's a lot of efficiencies that can be gained there. It is an adaptation that the industry will have to take on and figure out. But I have full confidence we will, as we have over, the last couple of decades when we've changed and went from paper to electronic and so on. So I think it is a natural progression, but it's definitely one of those areas that's a somewhat of a quick win. Call it quick, it's like, a decade in the making, but it is, it's more feasible.
It's an overnight success that started back in 06 and 07.
Right.
I mean, and I would say the benefit is you can validate it immediately. You have the viewer, you have the output, and you can easily assess. I would say, I think The cost of it is, again, not to be a buzzkill, the cost is going to be a challenge, especially some of these integrations have costs, not just at the document level, but at the prompt level. And that's a very easy way for a budget to get blown by, there's a level of gatekeeping that's going to have to happen by the administrators of those databases.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's computationally expensive. And the thing about generative AI is that it is not necessarily the best algorithm to solve all problems. Yeah. So the future of generative AI is probably a hybrid with other learning models, because, as we've used continuous active learning models in a review context, it is computationally very efficient. And, it may be the case that generative AI is going to be more part of, sort of a second stage sort of analysis, or also in terms of interface, it's really good at taking plain language and turning it into complex commands, and similarly taking complex output and summarizing it in plain language. So I think the future is probably not going to be dump everything into generative AI. And just to highlight how expensive it is, I think yesterday or the day before, it came to light that future versions of Copilot are going to make use of the new processing units that are the dedicated processing units that are specialized for AI on local machines, which is an interesting switch, since I don't know, like 5 minutes ago, wasn't the thrust like, please bring everything to the cloud. Everything should be in the cloud. Your computer is just a terminal. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're going to start processing AI on local computers, which basically underscores just how computationally expensive it is.
Do you think that's going to switch, like where we're going to regress from the cloud and be more on-prem, Jamie?
It might, at least in a way. Or, again, it'll probably be a hybrid sort of situation. But, the data flow is going to be rather interesting.
I've noticed, Jamie, that conversation. I've been engaged in conversations recently, too, where there's reservation about AI being used in a cloud. And I'm like, didn't we just get to the cloud? Like, didn't we just get here and we're all in on the cloud? So what? I've totally been involved in those conversations recently.
It's true. It's a pendulum swing. But one thing real quick, just one last little note on that, Kat. I think we're talking a lot about the cost, but the costs are today. I think one thing that we need to, acknowledge is it's going to go down. Everything in the beginning is always, we used to pay $1,000 per process, but, gigabyte or whatever.
Yeah, remember how much it used to cost to process a gigabyte? Like, how much was a gigabyte in 2006?
So much. So it will change.
I've got to hold to the schedule. We've got one more debate to go. I'm shifting the rules because we're in the last 7 minutes. So 60-second responses. And it's, how good or bad could GAI-powered future be? Are we looking at a Star Trekian utopia or the intergalactic battles of Star Wars? I am going to kick off with, I think, Alicia?
Yeah. I don't know what any of those words mean because I don't watch those things. I'm not a sci-fi person, so I don't know what any of that means. But I will answer the, how good or bad could it be? I mean, the reality is it could be real bad. It could be real bad. That is the truth, and that is the reality. And the way that it becomes real bad, and it already is headed in that direction in a lot of ways, in a lot of places, is when we have a lack of regulation, a lack of guardrails, a lack of, a lot of bad actors, which deep fakes are real. That's not fake. Deep fakes are real. My dad was deep faked about a car accident that my brother was not in, but somebody who sounded like my brother got on this call and deep faked my dad. It's a real thing. And one thing that people don't always think about is that there are professions where generative AI can take away work. For example, artists, musicians. These are people who, if AI replaces them, they don't have jobs.
Sorry. All right. Next up, I've got Kristen. Sorry, it's the final stretch. I want everyone to talk.
Final stretch. Okay, I can't lie. I'm a dreamer at heart, and I'm hoping for utopia. I strongly think that GAI will change many, many businesses and industries across the world. I think wherever you have people working, AI can augment in some way or fashion and change the way that they do their work, change the roles that they play. So I believe it's inevitable. And frankly, I look forward to the day that a handheld device can just scan my body for disease and illnesses, and Star Trek Utopia for the win. I think that's where we're headed, and I think embracing it is the key.
I love it. All right, counterpoint. Cassie, do you have a burning counterpoint?
Yes, I do. Going back to the practice of law, because this is the hill I'm going to die on, is, as I said before, the practice of law is a persuasive practice. We have to be creative in our pursuits of how we represent our clients and finding solutions for them. And part of that is knowing how to tell their story. And that means you have to be close to the facts. And if we rely too much on generative AI to help distill those facts, then we're just learning that story by data. And we really need to get close and stay close to the stories that our clients are bringing to us to really be able to zealously defend and represent our clients. Otherwise, we get too far removed from it. And, as the august, member of the audience said, we could just be like, these people driving cars at the whim of Waymo, and we've completely lost our sense of direction as attorneys. So with that, I will concede and hand it over to Jamie.
All right, and to wrap it up with a final thought, Jamie, please kick it off. But you're on mute.
See, it was such a good argument. He just with no words.
Hey, she said she conceded. No.
Oh, sorry. I can see my time. Sorry.
Yeah, you would think that after all these years of pandemic, I'd be good at unmuting myself. So here we are.
AI for that. So
is AI going to make us dumber? Is it going to make us worse attorneys, or is it going to be the bionic sort of moment for lawyers? And I suggest that it is going to be the latter. Just like graphing calculators didn't make us forget how to do actual math or long division. I did it the other day. I was surprised, but it's like riding a bicycle. I think that AI is going to free us up to do what we were actually trained to do. Many a late night I've said, did I go to law school to do thing X? And it is AI that is going to free me up to do the things I did go to law school to. And that is, of course, to actually achieve justice and zealously represent our clients rather than do minutia.
Well, I feel like that couldn't have been a better mic drop. So while we're wrapping up, let's do one more exit poll. But for the audience, my wonderful debaters were assigned sides, so their actual beliefs are probably somewhere in the middle. But I think that all had compelling points on the need to, stay cautious, but be ambitious in embracing the technology. We've got 2 more minutes while the poll is closing. Does anyone want to have a quick closing thought? You can have about 30 seconds. I mean, don't all jump in. Come on.
I really do like AI, so I just want to make that perfectly clear.
Well, I will say
Not me. I'm really opposed to it.
It looks like we did sway the audience, though. So the initial was 20% all in, up to 34.5%. So all in team, nicely done. Proceed with caution dipped a little bit down to 58%, but still very strong. And then a few more people moved out of the not sure, don't know. So I think this was a successful debate. If you guys want more of this style, let us know. But just thank you very much, Alicia, Jamie, Cassie, Kristen. This was a truly fun endeavor. And for anyone in the audience who we may not have gotten a chance to answer your questions, we're going to respond with them in email. There were some good ones. I was on a tight schedule, but thank you guys.
Thank you, Kat.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Great questions.